So Katie, whenever we're ready to live stream, let us know and we'll start the recording and the live streaming. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tullahoma. Today is Sunday, October 3rd, 2021. So welcome to those of you here on Zoom and to those of you live streaming. We'll start with an opening reading from Brene Brown. She has done a TED Talk that's quite good on vulnerability, and this sort of gets at that a little bit, but the title is Compassionate. Compassionate people ask for what they need. They say no when they need to, and when they say yes, they mean it. They're compassionate because their boundaries keep them out of resentment. So now we'll move on to our chalice lighting.
And today's chalice lighting comes from the Buddha. Thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle. And happiness never decreases by being shared.
We'll now move on to announcements. And if you have an announcement, yes, raise your hand and then I'll call on you. So Peter, yes, go ahead, sir.
I had to reschedule our little goodbye party in the park. Lucy also put a message in the newsletter, so you can find it there. It's October the 14th, which is a Thursday, and like to do it in the evening, like from 5 to 7. Same place as we met before, and you all come.
All right. Thank you, Peter. If anybody's here that isn't aware of what Peter's talking about, he's moving to Utah later in October. So this is a farewell get together for him. Any other announcements? All right, I have a couple. It was already been mentioned, but we do have a one-day retreat planned, scheduled for the first Saturday in November, November 6th, at Timms Ford State Park, where we've had the previous retreats. They have kind of a, I guess I'll call it a clubhouse, but an enclosed building there that we've rented. So more to come from that, but that's always been a good get together. And then COVID numbers. So things are looking good. We're not out of the woods by any means, but Chuck Margaret has been tracking that for us and sharing it with the board. So this past Wednesday, our 7-day weighted average for our 7 counties that we're monitoring was 54 cases per 100,000. A week ago, it was 77, and then the week before that was 126. So about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, it appeared to have peaked, and we appear to be over the top. So that's really good. The other part of this is vaccination rates are still not very high in Tennessee. I didn't look this week, but it was like 45 or 46 a week ago % total vaccination rate for the state, and our 7-county region is generally about 10 points behind that. So even though the numbers are going down, we're still less than 50% vaccinated here in our area. So still be careful. So that's it. Yes, Gene.
The Tullahoma Fine Arts Center is keeping the display of Camp Forest during World War II for another 2-3 days. And let's see, there was another announcement. Oh, there's a masquerade ball coming up on the 16th at the Arts Center, and tickets are $20. And there's music, dancing, food, mask creating if you want to wear one of these. So anyway, I think it's going to be a good time. So anyway, any who are interested, please get in touch with me, or I can save tickets for you at the desk.
Gene, in the newsletter, it said $40. Is that for a couple?
No, the $40 is anybody that I don't.
Oh, okay.
I get it for 20 and I'm passing it on.
Thank you, guys. Yes, Carrie?
Our speaker next Sunday is Roddy Briggs from Murfreesboro, and he's going to be speaking on Why Not Everyone.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you for all the speakers you're lining up for us. Really appreciate it. I have one more announcement, and that is our usual one about supporting the church. So if you want to financially help the church, support the church, you can send a check to the UU Church of Tullahoma, P.O. Box 331 in Tullahoma. Zip is 37388. Any other announcements? Doesn't look like it. All right. So we will do a responsive reading next. And it is called Listening is an Act of the Heart by Leslie Takahashi. Listening is not an act of the ear. Listening is an act of the heart.
In these times, so many speak of outrage, anger, and disillusionment.
Rage is a constant cry. Derision has found its voice. Despair speaks fast and often, and the whisper of hopelessness grows into a keening lament.
We should open our hearts to the real fears of those who have known hate, because fear is a guide to its insidious expansiveness.
Open our memories to those ancestors of our spirits who were love seekers, peacemakers, truth guiders, system questioners, and listen, because
Listening to the reason for fear or desperation is an act of our hearts.
do not ignore the soul pain of the ones who move through the hardest nights, who face the denial of their rights and the desecration of their humanity. All people are family, and we all live within our larger circle of interdependentness.
Open our hearts to the true threats that many feel.
Open our minds to the anguish of those who need accompaniment.
Open our memories to those who came before us and taught us how to create new forms of love out of old worn patterns.
And listen, because
Deep, true listening is an act of our hearts. Listening is an act of our hearts.
we will now move on to our speaker. Rabbi Rami is our guest speaker, and the title I have here is Grokking the Truth of 1 to the Power of 10. So Rabbi, if that's still the correct title, great. If not, correct it, and it's all yours.
No, that title will do. Thank you. So I don't know how many of you watched the film. Carrie sent out the link, but we decided we're just gonna, it's 9 minutes. We're gonna throw it up on it. Well, we'll see. we're gonna try to put it up. We'll watch it one more time together and then unpack it.
All right, you ready for it?
Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't have 2 videos on the same internet.
Link.
Yeah, we can't have 2 separate in the future. I think we did this once before one time.
Okay.
We did it.
All right. Turn this up just a little bit.
The picnic near the lakeside in Chicago is the start of a lazy afternoon, early 1 October. We begin with a scene 1 meter wide, which we view from just 1 meter away. Now, every 10 seconds, we will look from 10 times farther away, and our field of view will be 10 times wider. This square is 10 meters wide, and in 10 seconds, the next square will be 10 times as wide. Our picture will center on the picnickers, even after they've been lost to sight. 100 meters wide. The distance a man can run in 10 seconds. Cars crowd the highway. Power boats lie at their docks. The colorful bleachers are Soldiers Field. This square is 1 kilometer wide, 1,000 meters. The distance a racing car can travel in 10 seconds. We see the great city on the lake shore. 10 to the 4th meters, 10 kilometers. The distance a supersonic airplane can travel in 10 seconds. We see first the rounded end of Lake Michigan, then the whole Great Lake. 10 to the 5th meters, the distance an orbiting satellite covers in 10 seconds. Long parades of clouds, the day's weather in the Middle West. 10 to the 6th, a 1 with 6 zeros, 1 million meters. Soon the Earth will show as a solid sphere. We are able to see the whole Earth now, just over a minute along the journey. The Earth diminishes into the distance, but those background stars are so much farther away that they do not yet appear to move. A line extends at the true speed of light. In 1 second, it half crosses the tilted orbit of the moon. Now we mark a small part of the path in which the Earth moves about the sun. Now the orbital paths of the neighbor planets, Venus and Mars, then Mercury. Entering our field of view is the glowing center of our solar system, the sun, followed by the massive outer planets, swinging wide in their big orbits. That odd orbit belongs to Pluto. A fringe of a myriad comets too faint to see completes the solar system. Ten to the 14th. As the solar system shrinks to one bright point in the distance, our sun is plainly now only one among the stars. Looking back from here, we note 4 southern constellations, still much as they appear from the far side of the Earth. This square is 10 to the 16th meters, 1 light year, not yet out to the next star. Our last 10-second step took us 10 light years further. The next will be 100. Our perspective changes so much in each step now that even the background stars will appear to converge. At last, we pass the bright star Arcturus and some stars of the Dipper. Normal but quite unfamiliar stars and clouds of gas surround us as we traverse the Milky Way galaxy. Giant steps carry us into the outskirts of the galaxy. And as we pull away, we begin to see the great flat spiral facing us. The time and path we chose to leave Chicago has brought us out of the galaxy along a course nearly perpendicular to its disk. The 2 little satellite galaxies of our own are the clouds of Magellan. 10 to the 22nd power, 1 million light years. Groups of galaxies bring a new level of structure to the scene. Glowing points are no longer single stars, but whole galaxies of stars seen as one. We pass the big Virgo cluster of galaxies among many others, 100 million light years out. As we approach the limit of our vision, we pause to start back home. This lonely scene, the galaxies like dust, is what most of space looks like. This emptiness is normal. The richness of our own neighborhood is the exception. The trip back to the picnic on the lakefront will be a sped-up version, reducing the distance to the Earth's surface by 1 power of 10 every 2 seconds. In each 2 seconds, we will appear to cover 90% of the remaining distance back to Earth. Notice the alternation between great activity and relative inactivity, a rhythm that will continue all the way into our next goal, a proton in the nucleus of a carbon atom beneath the skin on the hand of the sleeping man at the picnic. 10 to the 9th meters, 10 to the 8th, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are back at our starting point. We slow up at 1 meter, 10 to the 0 power. Now we reduce the distance to our final destination by 90% every 10 seconds, each step much smaller than the one before. At 10 to the minus 2, 1/100th of a meter, 1 centimeter, we approach the surface of the hand. In a few seconds, we'll be entering the skin, crossing layer after layer from the outermost dead cells into a tiny blood vessel within. Skin layers vanish in turn. An outer layer of cells, felty collagen. The capillary containing red blood cells and a roughly lymphocyte. We enter the white cell. Among its vital organelles, the porous wall of the cell nucleus appears. The nucleus within holds the heredity of the man in the coiled coils of DNA. As we close in, we come to the double helix itself, a molecule like a long twisted ladder whose rungs of paired bases spell out twice, in an alphabet of 4 letters, the words of the powerful genetic message. At the atomic scale, the interplay of form and motion becomes more visible. We focus on one commonplace group of 3 hydrogen atoms bonded by electrical forces to a carbon atom. 4 electrons make up the outer shell of the carbon itself. They appear in quantum motion as a swarm of shimmering points. At 10 to the minus 10 meters, 1 angstrom, we find ourselves right among those outer electrons. Now we come upon the 2 inner electrons held in a tighter swarm. As we draw toward the atom's attracting center, we enter upon a vast inner space. At last, the carbon nucleus. So massive and so small. This carbon nucleus is made up of 6 protons and 6 neutrons. We are in the domain of universal modules. There are protons and neutrons in every nucleus, electrons in every atom, atoms bonded into every molecule out to the farthest galaxy. As a single proton fills our scene, we reach the edge of present understanding. Are these some quarks in intense interaction? Our journey has taken us through 40 powers of 10. If now the field is 1 unit, then when we saw many clusters of galaxies together, it was 10 to the 40th, or 1 and 40 zeros.
All right, so that worked. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let me tell you why I wanted to show this today. And that's because next Sunday, when you'll be talking about Why Not Everyone, next Sunday is October 10th, and October 10th is Powers of 10 Day. It's a day that's been, people who love this movie have made October 10th Powers of 10 Day, where people are watching this film next Sunday and having these big discussions on it. So I thought I would just get a jump start on it and see what we can make of this movie. How many of you, and I know half of you now have decided not to turn on the video, so I can't really tell, but how many of you remember this from decades ago? Did anyone see it when it was new? It came out in 60s originally, and then this was a remake in the 70s. So just a couple people you hadn't seen it. How many of you had never seen it before? Oh, so a bunch of people. Well, I'm good. I'm glad we showed it again. I own this movie in DVD. I've owned this movie in a flip book, so you could sit down and just run the pages with your thumb, and the whole movie unfolds in front of you. This movie has fascinated me since I first saw it. And what gets me, what really captures me with this film, and it's primitive in its production value, and they say this is the limits of our understanding And that was back in 60s, 70s. So things have changed. But what captures my attention is a couple of things. At the very end of the movie, whoever the narrator is says, he shows you the dancing of the internals of the atom there. And he says, this extends throughout the entire universe. So even though when we went out as far as we could, it just seemed like empty space. Later, he gives you he says that basically even empty space is not really empty. And it's all this dancing, all this wild motion. I apologize for the dog, but there's motion outside and she's going crazy. So from the most microscopic to the most cosmic, it's this dance. In Taoism, they talk about the dancing Wu Li masters, which is the name of a physics book from maybe the 70s or 80s, that tries to show that mystics and astrophysicists are revealing the same truth. So the first thing that gets me with this is that the universe is alive. And he even says somewhere in the movie, as we're going into the guy's hand, at some point he says, you see the connection between motion and form. And from a Buddhist perspective, but not only, from a mystic perspective, form and motion go together. There's no fixed form. All form is in flux. All form is transient. It's always in a state of change. That's why when you get to when you speak about Taoism, they talk about the Tao. The Tao is never a fixed thing. It's always flowing. They use the analogy of water, flowing water, to be analogous to what the Tao is. So it's always in motion. I think even more, I was going to say accurately, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but even more profoundly in the Hebrew Bible, the word for God, and I mean, I've spoken about this before, but the word that's used for God that our English Bibles translate as Lord, which is not a translation, but a sexist imposition on the actual Hebrew, because Lord is masculine and Lord is hierarchical. The actual Hebrew, which is just 4 Hebrew letters, Yud He Vav He or YHVH, the actual Hebrew is a verb. And it's the future imperfect form of the Hebrew verb to be. So whoever came up with that word to refer to the divine or to God or to absolute reality had some inkling that whatever absolute reality was, it was in motion. It was a happening, not a thing. So when we say God is a being, or God is the supreme being, from the Bible's original point of view, God isn't, it's not a noun. So it's not a being or the supreme being, it's being itself, being as a verb. Or one way to render it is God is the happening. Happening is all happening in the universe. So that's one thing I get from this movie, that the universe is just this aliveness and we're part of it. The next thing I get is that we occupy this unique spot. I don't mean spatially, but I don't know how actually to put it, but you go out from the hand far enough and it's seemingly empty space. You go inside the hand deep enough and the person is gone also, and it's just the dancing of the subatomic particles. But there's a certain band of existence where you and I operate. Now we're part of the larger, the macroscopic. We contain the microscopic. But I don't recognize you because of the hydrogen atoms at the core of your being. Right? I mean, if you showed me, if we were all suddenly exposed as these hydrogen atoms, I couldn't tell one person from the other. They're all the same. Our uniqueness, our preciousness exists on that level where, you know, the microscopic and the macroscopic come together in a certain way that allows us to be us. Even though the us that we imagine we are is a thin slice of who we really are, which is the infinite expanse and the infinite, the infinity in the macrocosmic and infinity in the microcosmic. We exist as us in this little band, which makes us incredibly important, I think. We may not be the only beings in the universe. I'm not making that claim. If there are other beings on other worlds and other galaxies, they would be able to say the same things about themselves. And that should, I would hope, give them that same sense of value, that same sense of preciousness. The movie seems to say, or at least not seems to, but the movie says to me the opposite of what Steven Weinberg said in his book, Gravitation and Cosmology. He says, and this is a famous quote, a lot of us have heard it. Weinberg says, the more comprehensible the universe becomes, the more pointless it seems. So that's a depressing thought. The more understandable things get, the more pointless they seem to us. I think there's another way of understanding what Weinberg is saying. I don't think the universe has a point. I don't think we're the point of the universe. We're a point in the infinite expanse of the universe that allows us to exist, and not just us, but nature and animals and all the rest of it. We're all in that same band of that perfect spot where forms like those we experience can exist. So I'm not saying that we're the point of the universe, but and I'm also not saying that the universe has a point, like it's moving towards some giant reveal, you know, that's 13.8 billion years so far, and maybe at another few billion or another, 13.8 billion, suddenly the universe goes, ta-da, and then if there's anybody there, they go, oh, that was what it was about. I don't think there's a point like that. So we're not the point. There is no point to which it's going. I disagree with someone, and I'm maybe simplifying what he said, but Thierry de Chardin, we're moving toward an omega point. I don't think that's it. I think the point of the universe is simply to dance. I think the point of the universe is to be the universe. And part of being the universe is being us. When we recognize that, I think we get a profound sense of the sacred, not as mainstream religion promotes it, that something is sacred. It's like in Hebrew, when you say something is holy, the word is kadosh. It means separate. It means apart. It means other than the universe that we experience. God is holy, and God is wholly other. That's not what I have in mind. My understanding is, first of all, the universe itself is part of God's, if you want to even use the word, you don't need to, but if I use the word God, I mean the universe is part of God's happening. The point of the universe is simply to happen. It's nature to dance. It's its nature to manifest the infinite variety, or it seems infinite to me, but the vast variety of both being and the emptiness we saw at the end of going to the outermost. That's what it is. The point of life is, well, that's life. The point of the universe is to be the universe. It's not pointless. It's just that the point isn't other than the universe itself. When we recognize that, I suspect we stop looking for something outside of the universe to give meaning to the universe. The universe itself is meaningful. You and I are in and of ourselves meaningful. You don't have to make meaning out of your life. Your life is meaningful. When you have your dog on your lap, you don't have to give the dog meaning. The meaning of the relationship with the animal is intrinsic to the relationship itself. It just arises out of the happening itself. And I think that's what I get from the movie, that it's reminding me that this is a meaningful, if not directional, right? We're not going somewhere, but this is a meaningful dance. I mean, in a dance, if you're dancing, the point isn't to get from point A to point B, right? The point of dancing is just to move. That's the kind of meaning I'm talking about. The joy of dancing is not getting to the end of the dance, or you're starting at one point of the dance floor and you're trying to get to the other point of the dance floor. Then it's just who goes the fastest wins, right? The point of a symphony is not to get to the end, because then the best symphonies would be just ones that have a big, crescendo, and you don't need all the other movements to the symphony. Let's just cut to the chase and get to the end. The point of the symphony is the symphony itself. The point of the dance is the dancing itself. The point of the universe is the universe itself. And the point of you and I is you and I, in and of ourselves. We don't need anything to make us valuable. This, to me, leads us into the question of suffering. If the universe is meaningful, why is there suffering? But I think what the movie shows is that the universe contains both form and action, both stuff and emptiness, everything in its opposite. Suffering is just part of the universe. It's just the way things function. It's included. It's when the Buddha says in the first of the Four Noble Truths, life is dukkha. Life is usually translated as suffering. The suffering that the Buddha is talking about is a human-made suffering. And you know that because the second of the Four Noble Truths is suffering is caused by desire. So and the third is end desire, you end suffering. And the fourth is how do you end desire? So the Buddha is talking about unnecessary suffering, suffering caused by desire. But there is unnecessary suffering, just necessary to life. It's just part of the way life is. And the Buddha talks about that as well in what's called the Five Remembrances. And he says, of course, you don't know if the Buddha said any of the things that we say he says, but someone said in the Buddha's name. The Buddha said that if you remember these five things, your life will be improved. I don't want to make a bigger claim than, right? It's not going to lead to enlightenment, but these are five things that if you really keep them in mind, will make your living more effective. And they're the unnecessary suffering that we have to accept as part of this in this dance. So here are the five things. I want to go through these and we'll take a break and then we'll unpack all of this. So these are the five necessary sufferings that the Buddha expresses. Number one, I will grow old and I can't avoid growing old. That's the first thing. You're just going to get older and all the consequences of getting older. Inevitable, of course, unless you die young, but that's another one of these. But if you live long enough, you live long enough to suffer because you've lived so long. Number two, I will become ill and I cannot avoid becoming ill. Dis-ease is just part of the nature of things. Now you can minimize, the chances of getting sick. You can wear a mask, you can get vaccinated. You can, and I guess take horse dewormer if you happen to be a horse, but you're going to get sick and you can't avoid getting sick. It's just part of the way things are structured. The third remembrance is I'm going to die and I can't avoid dying. It's just natural to life. The fourth is at some point I will be separated from everything I love and everyone I love. Separation death. It's just part of the mix. But here he's not talking about separation caused by death. There are other kinds of separation. Peter's leaving. He's going to, I forgot where, Omaha? Is that where you're going? Utah. So he's going to go out and be with his Mormon brothers and sisters. So I don't know. When I come to Tullahoma, I love the opportunity to talk to Peter. So that's I'm being separated from Peter. You're all being separated from Peter. That's just part of the nature of reality, right? And then the fifth one is I'm responsible for my actions. Now that's a different quality than the other four. The other four are simply facts of life. This is a truth, but it seems to me that the last one is of a different quality. I am responsible for my actions. But no matter how much responsibility I take, I still can't avoid growing old. I can't avoid dying. I can't avoid getting sick. I can't avoid dying. I can't avoid separation. What I can control is how I deal with all of these things. And if I deal with them from the point of view that these are an inevitable part of living, and that living isn't reduced just to this, to me, that this entity I call me is part of inside and outside this vastness that the movie, this vast motion, this vast dance that the movie reveals, then I find tremendous comfort in that. The more I'm me, and the more I see myself, the more I see myself as me and you as you, separate. The more I'm limiting my concern or my understanding to just this, and remember those cartoons way before this movie was made, where they go inside the person's head and there's a little version of you in your head running your brain. That's the self, that's the ego. We have this imaginary self in our heads that you can't actually find. So not only do I limit it to me, I limit it to a small part of me that's inside the physical me. The more I do that, the more alienated I become, and the more prone I am to unnecessary suffering, the suffering that comes from the sense of alienation. The movie removes that sense of alienation. I'm part of this vast happening that includes, in the band where I exist, that includes the inevitability of old age, illness, death, separation, and my being responsible for how I deal with those things. I'm part of that. To me, that's comforting, but not only to me. So let me just tell you who else finds it comforting, and besides the Buddha who came up with the idea. In the Bible, Job finds it comforting. So we've talked about Job at length in other talks, not that you'll remember, but at the end of the book of Job, God reveals the universe to be this wild, chaotic thing. Krishna does the exact same thing in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna reveals the universe to Arjuna, and you get the same universe that is revealed to Job in the book of Job. It's wild, and it's all of these suns and galaxies, and everything is just dancing and floating, and this creatively destructive kind of event. And in most English translations, this breaks Job's heart, soul. It reduces him to self-loathing. Most English translations have Job say something after this is revealed. Job says something like, I despise myself and I cover myself in dust and ash. But the movie in Buddhism and other traditions is, as well as a proper translation of the Hebrew book of Job, reveals something else. In the Hebrew, Job says, I am comforted by being dust and ash. The movie reveals on the macro that we are just this part of this vast emptiness. At the micro, we're part of this vast dance that includes the emptiness, or the emptiness includes the dance. Job says, wow, that's me. Yeah, I get old. Yeah, I get sick, because this is what happens in the book of Job. Yeah, I will die, or in the book of Job, he doesn't die, but his children die. Yeah, everything that I love will be taken from me, my kids, my businesses, my health, all of that. All that's going to happen to me. When I realize, though, that I am part of this vast happening, Job says, I am comforted by that realization. I'm not despising myself and covering myself in dust and ash. I am comforted by the fact and the realization that I am dust and ash, because dust and ash is part of the happening of this vast universe. So, Power of 10 Day and the Powers of 10 movie is a reminder of our true existence, and a call, I think, to allow the vastness of which we are a part to liberate us from the notion, from the alienation that reduces us, not just as individuals, though it does that, but reduces us to warring camps and all the unnecessary suffering that we're going through in the planet at the moment, from the environmental to the economic to the tribalism and politics of, and you could go to almost any country, you see the same thing, but all of that is caused by a sense of alienation, a sense of othering, of otherness, which is followed by an action of othering. All of that is caused by a misunderstanding of the nature of the universe, one which I think the Powers of 10 movie helps to at least spark a conversation that helps us get beyond that damning understanding of the nature of reality. So I'm going to stop there. And we're going to take a break.
Thank you very much. Really, that was great. Really appreciate it. So we will do our closing right now. Yes. So the closing, our traditional closing from the book.
As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return.
So yes, it is 11:03. So let's take a 10-minute break and come back at 11:13. Thank you very much, Rabbi.
You're welcome. I'll be back.